to call this meeting to order at 12:02 p.m. on June 3rd, 2022. Let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 12:02 p.m. on June 3rd, 2022.
One nation under God,
recite the
indivisible,
Pledge of Allegiance,
liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Combs?
Here, present remotely from my car in Pueblo.
Mr. Lippert? Aye. Mr. Ricks?
Here remotely, I can barely hear you, TJ. From West Texas in the middle of nowhere.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Mr. Swayze is absent, but will be here shortly. Mr. Underwood?
Here. Brings us to 3.0 modification approval of the agenda. Since all five of us are not present, we cannot modify the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Combs. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Lippert, aye. Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Brings us to 4.0 executive session security details. I'd like to make a motion to move into an executive session to discuss specialized details of security arrangements or investigations, including defenses against terrorism, both domestic and foreign, and including where disclosure of matters discussed might reveal information that could be used for the purpose of committing or voting prosecution for a violation of the law in accordance with CRS 246402-4D. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lippert. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Lippert, aye. Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye, motion carries. We are moving into executive session. I can't talk. Executive session at 12:04 p.m. You all got the invite?
Yes.
Okay,
I did not, if you want me in there.
no, well, I'll forward it to you, Kyle.
All right.
First one to leave. Executive session. All righty. Well, that was fun. Yeah. And board assistant, when you do the minutes, that whole time was on the one subject. All right. Where's audio? Get it on. All right. All right. So we have reconvened from executive session at 12:38 p.m. on June 6, 2022. In attendance, we have Board President Randy Underwood.
Vice President Danielle. Vice President Danielle Combs.
Treasurer Paul Ricks.
All right. So that brings us to discussion items, morale spending. So we left this at the last board meeting with trying to characterize what we are spending on. I think specifically the topic was candy and donuts. And at the end of the day, candy and donuts is about $400 a year. And the amount of money that superintendent spends on taking principals to lunch and dinner is about 300. So now that we have that, we can continue on with our discussion. What's everybody's thoughts? Do we allow this, not allow this? Do we cap it? If we cap it, how much do we cap it at? What do we want to do? Oh, and for the record, sorry, Tim was about to speak. I'm sorry. We do a lot of other things in the name of morale. And so far this year, that total has been around 5,000 based on the data we got from the business office. All right, so let me start. I had this little speech prepared and I wasn't going to say it, but since there's this pregnant pause. So I'm a former Army officer, and when I'm asked or told, ordered to do a job, I do that job. I do that job to the best of my ability and give the effort 100%. And I don't understand personally the concept of having a full candy jar in the break room. But what I've learned in the 20 years that I've got since I got out of the Army is that I'm weird. I'm not like everybody else. And I've come to learn that there are people who that has a positive impact on. So honestly, I'm kind of on the fence either way on this. I really think, based on everything I've heard, that at some level it does have a positive impact on morale. And I think that the principal and superintendent, outside of work interaction has a positive impact. But as always, I yield to the majority of the board. We've heard arguments that we shouldn't be spending tax dollars on that. And we've heard other arguments, well, we could be spending that money on other things. And we've also heard that, well, if you need to put candy in the break room to improve morale, then you have a leadership problem. We've heard all those arguments. But we need to make a decision. So where are we?
I'm okay with morale spending, but not in excess. Like, if you want to buy a big bag of candy at the beginning of the month and it lasts until, but don't fill it up every 3 days. Like, don't replace it twice a week or once a week. And I don't know the details. But I do think that like the morale spending with the 5,000, I think we've done like meals for them a couple times. And I feel like that is a way of showing appreciation. And I definitely am okay with that. But maybe we can get the teachers involved as well and say, hey, once a week, let's sign up and someone bring a treat or someone bake a cake or bake brownies or whatever they want to bring in that week and try to get maybe the staff involved. I don't want it to be done in excess, but I also don't want to get down to the nitty gritty of the micromanaging of you can't spend this and this and this. Let's just all be mindful adults and be aware of the budget and have the district's greater good in mind at all times.
What is your
if we
definition
do-
of excessive, that's really the question.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess that is the question. And that was for the whole year, those numbers of the 400 and then the 300.
So with that, you want to call it?
Just Ed Swayze joined the board meeting at 12:45.
Yes, that was for the whole, so the $400 was only a compilation of candy, donuts, and then there was one purchase for ice cream
For the entire year.
for the entire year.
And that's like Sam's Club purchases added up and all that. Do you know?
So through March.
And I don't
I
don't want our district to be so big on morale that we forget to give them and provide them the necessities. Like if I had to choose between making sure that they have the supplies and the paper and whatever else they may need for their classrooms and for the students that might not have stuff over a candy bar, most definitely. So I definitely think that we need to make sure that that's taken care of first and foremost before we try to go out here and make sure everyone has candy. That's my 2 cents.
We have never not got them the supplies that they need. We have one time at Prairie Heights, we went through a ton of paper really fast that we had to ask them, hey, until we get our next shipment in, can you please make this last? But that was the only time that happened. Other than that, they get whatever supplies they need.
Okay.
Mr. Lippert was
Thank you.
trying to go.
And I'm not saying these numbers are wrong too much, maybe by just saying candy, but I've personally witnessed more pizza than $400 a month or a
Fine.
year.
I didn't include pizza.
Right. Well,
I didn't
morale
see,
spending is
right.
morale spending. Are
Right.
you buying a ton of pizza and everything else? That has to be included in it. I agree that we need that. I like morale spending. It's a good thing, but we got to limit
It
it.
is.
Morale spending is we pay their lunch. Their lunch is free this whole year. And now we're spending over $400 if you add the pizza. This is ridiculous.
I've seen families come in on this morale spending and we're feeding the family the pizzas.
Exactly,
A lot more than $400 a month for a
exactly.
year.
But the question started last board meeting with candy and donuts.
I think that was an
That's why-
example.
It was
That's why I
example.
singled it out. And that's why I included overall, everything that's been accounted for in this line item is $5,000. But again, some of that is, like, for instance, there was a working dinner between the principals and the superintendent for SCAP.
Mm.
Right? And like, for instance, when the teachers are doing the NWEA testing, right, there will be a meal provided. If they stay late to attend one of the functions, sometimes we'll get dinner, right? So,
I have no problem with that.
right. So then do you take exception with 5,000 for the year?
I
Do we
guess,
want to cap it at 5,000 for the year for everything? So that way we're not going over on candy and everything else. We can just cap it at $5,000.
We can cap it at whatever we want to cap it at.
What is everyone's thoughts?
I think those luncheons are great. I think that a superintendent wants to sit down with his staff and have a decent dinner. And I mean, I have gone out the last couple, I've gone out a couple times here lately, and by gosh, a meal's $25 a piece. If I'm going cheap. If I want a burger, it's like $25 a piece. It's crazy to eat out right now. I like the limit of $5,000, but we also we got to hold to it. I like that we go out and spend money and help out and do things like that. But I've seen on several occasions just chicken wings, boxes of donuts and pizzas, and I have seen that on several occasions on tables. If that's all coming out of that $5,000, how the superintendent manages that $5,000, I guess how he divvies it up.
I guess for
And then-
me, where I had,
No,
But hold on, Paul.
no, I disagree. Why on earth do we need to spend 5,000 or more, which has been more, on morale? We gave them their free lunch this year because of it. That's one thing. How can we save $5,000 for pizza, donuts, and candy bars? Let's take some of the other places. Do you think big businesses are spending this money? No, they
Yeah.
got more money than we do. A lot more money than we do. Transportation, they haven't spent that much money. No, we had a big morale booster. We had steak dinner. I didn't see any of that come out of the school lunches or school pay.
We could always take back
Kind of
school
money.
lunches.
We don't need to spend that kind of money on morale. We pay their lunch. We decided that a while back.
We did.
That was for this.
morale. Now, I'm not saying cut it all out. No, but we fought hard for this money with the previous administration to limit this money and watch what we spent. And the paper thing, I heard it from teachers. Others have heard it from teachers, and not just one or two. I've heard about Prairie Heights cutting because they don't have money for paper.
I don't think it's because they don't have money.
Well,
I,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We made that agreement. We voted on it.
I'm talking about the meals.
And not just the meals, the paper and the supplies. We voted on that. Supplies, we cover, period. They need them, get them. I don't care if they got to go downtown. We don't ration supplies. We voted on that last year. The food, the morale, yeah, I agree with morale, but not like this. Over $5,000? No.
well,
Paul, go ahead.
where I took exception for a lot of this morale spending and going out to eat, a lot of times you'll see with two people, they're spending close to $75. But when our student athletes go out of town and play sports, CHASA only approves $6 for lunch and $12 for dinner. So $20 for two meals for our students. But then we're saying $35 a piece, and then we're also picking up the bill for the tip. Usually with even with nonprofit organizations, you pay for the bill, but your tip comes out of your own pocket. But we're paying for it all, and I just have a hard time with that, especially with the chocolates. We're soliciting our students to pay for prom to go out and sell chocolate candy bars, but yet then we're turning right around and we're spending that money again. It all comes out of the same funds to then keep morale up. And Randy, I don't think you're weird. My morale for showing up for work every day is payday. That's enough for me.
Me too. Like I said,
I don't get it.
That's the type of person I am, but I know there are people not like us in the world. So, all right. So we had a lot of discussion, but we need to get down to brass tacks, or this is going to be a gigantically long meeting because we have 5 other things to go over. What's the solution? What's the answer? Where do we want to land? because I see Ed saying, nope, zero, we already paid for your lunches, and then got a proposal to cap it at $5,000. What do we want to put on the table for a vote?
No, when they have those special meetings, I see nothing wrong with paying for their dinner, nothing. If all the teachers are staying after and they're having meetings over there, that's great. We've done that in the past, have it catered in like Lori does.
That, for the record, does not come out of district funds.
No, I know that. And I agree, it does not come out of district funds.
Well, actually, no, yeah, we did.
Only the board meeting, but not all of
Right.
them. Lori's paid for a
When we
lot.
did the community meetings for the
Right.
district master plan, that did come
That
out
didn't
of
come out of,
the
no,
budget.
that come out of Lori funds.
Nope, that was budget.
Oh, that one was? All right.
The master
But
plan.
not all
yes.
of master plan, yeah. But I have no problem with that. Or when the athletes go on travel, like Paul was saying, but they have a budget. Theirs isn't $35 or $25 per kid.
Right.
It's not. But I have no problem with doing that. But
Right.
if you're gonna have candy bars every other day, donuts every other day,
So you want to restrict what is purchased.
no, because your morale might be that donut, where my morale might be a piece of gum. No.
So
I'm
then
not
you want to
restrict
cap the
the
spending?
money. We can't waste the district's money on candy and donuts all the time. That's kind of,
Yes, sir. Make sure you turn the microphone on. No, we want input. I don't know if it's plugged in. Yep.
We on? I appreciate the conversation. I do. So I'd be remiss if I didn't speak, I think, just on behalf of the building principals. So I didn't ask my staff what they wanted, if they wanted a bowl of candy, if they want. I didn't ask. Michelle's different in her way. She's been around a little bit longer, deals with a whole different set of clientele. In elementary teachers, very different from junior high school teachers. So she went to the trouble at the start of her school year last year and asked, what would you like? If you were to be appreciated, what would make you feel better about her day, your day, the week, whatever? And her staff came back with everything from candy to chocolate to gift cards. What would you like to be appreciated with? You know, some said office supplies, some said an hour off of work where the principal would maybe come in and just cover my class. Just a whole realm of ways to be appreciated. And I don't think those are probably been totally eviscerated. I don't think we've used every one of those. The top three, if you were to ask Michelle, I would say probably the candy, the gift cards, were probably in the top three. I don't know about the donuts thing. I know that my staff, they rated the donuts when we brought them, but it wasn't every week. I try to do that a little bit of my own, but more or less, when I did things, I did them for the staff. I went out and we had the catered dinners, but those caterings were around events. They were always around a late night, a late meeting that had to do with NWA, or it had to do with, we got done with CMAS testing or something of that nature.
Right.
It wasn't
yes.
hey, we just do this. I usually try to tie it into something.
And that's
But
where I
again,
agree with you.
but again, you know, like I said, Michelle went through the trouble. She asked all of her staff, you know, what would you like? Gift cards, candy, office supplies, time, an hour during the day. Catered lunches came up. Some even said live plants, make them feel a little bit better. So I think it's just important to know that there are a lot of ways. I don't think we've used them all. And we'd be open to listening to what other opportunities we might provide for our staff that, again, it might be door decorations. It might be, you know, cleaning the room extra deep sometime. I mean, there's little things like that we haven't looked into that I think might be worth the while. But again, Michelle, again, she went through the trouble of asking her staff. That's what they came up with. I didn't ask my staff. I just started, you know, I felt like at different times of the year, you know, that long haul from January to February where there are no breaks, we had a catered dinner in there. We went into the SCAP. We had a lot of catered dinners that week just because we had visitors in our building. So for that purpose, I think it's just important to know that we we would be interested to hear what other options might be out there, but those are the ways that we went through this year. For what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Ed, you're not opposed to having a budget.
No, I'm not opposed
You're
to
just,
them.
right, we just gotta come up with the limit and that's what we're,
Yeah,
right.
not
what's the number?
crazily $5,000. That's, to me, that's a little excess.
What
Well,
we-
it's not excessive. $3,500.
Well, let's see, donuts every week, that's excessive. If I gotta give you donuts every week to bring you to work, there's a problem.
Well, but if we come up with a cap for an annual, then that'll be fine. Even if they do it for every week for the first 5 weeks, we get to that cap and then we're done.
You gotta remember,
Can I point out that $5,000 over a 10-month school year works out to be about $10 per employee?
a lot of those employees aren't getting the benefit of those donuts or candy bars.
Correct.
Lunch, we pay all their lunches. How much does that come out to be?
18,278.
Bingo, we're paying,
and
there
25
is a
cents.
lot of morale right there. All you
And-
do is
and
get paid for it.
If I remember correctly, everyone's pretty much getting a 3% raise as well. That's a good that's a good
5.41.
morale booster.
5.5 actually. And yes, I agree with you. I'm just putting it out there. When we have districts next to us paying so much money that they're driving through, anything we can do to improve, just to let them know how much we appreciate them, especially when they're the ones that ask for it. That's my only statement regarding this. Obviously this is a board decision, the board controls the purse, so we defer to your judgment.
I would like to give everybody a couple $1,000s, but we can't do that with district money and then all of a sudden go out and ask them for more money on taxes and we can't. I mean, if you do that to me, I tell you, up yours, you ain't getting it. We gotta be frugal with their money to ask them for more money to build this school and to do what we need.
Don't disagree. But at the end of the day, the question is still there. What is an appropriate amount of money to budget for these kinds of things?
Do we have
I mean,
to be segregated? And I'm sorry to cut you off on that one. Segregated where it's a professional fund that would be covering the dinners after SCAP and stuff like that. It's a professional environment. And then a difference between having 8 boxes of pizza on Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon. That's different. That's a different kind of spending. If superintendent's going out with his principals and going out to a nice dinner, that's a professional environment. I agree, that needs to be a different kind of fun.
And to me, that's not morale.
Right, that's a different
That's a
spend.
total different.
Morale
spend.
would be
Right,
the
they all just,
pizza
I'm
and
just saying they all
donuts.
ended up in the same line item.
Right, we maybe need to separate that, have 2 separate little budgets. One for the, in the teacher's lounge stuff, and then another one that is professional spending at the end of a meeting, at the end of an SCAP, at the end of, those things are expected. The superintendent should be able to take a staff out and have a,
Yeah,
I'm not talking about, Outback, but a nice sit down in a professional environment to talk to his staff.
Paul, Danielle, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, we always we can always make addendums throughout the year. If we see that, hey, we might need more potential, then okay, we can come back to the drawing board. So if I believe from what I'm gathering, there might be a consensus that, hey, we need to lower it. Why not come up with say, hey, let's try cutting that right in half. And then if we see mid-year, hey, you know what, we've actually done this has been having a positive effect, we should come back to the table and readjust.
So we only see updates, we have quarterly updates for by line item stuff, right? So is that going to be short enough of a cycle for you on that? So it would literally be mid-year before we have.
To me, that would make sense. That way, we can reevaluate, and if we have to wait till January, it's not I don't see that's gonna break
That's
the
when
bank,
the
you know,
quarter report would come out, right? August, September.
right. Now, do we
No,
throw
wouldn't-
in there,
We wouldn't see January till April, right?
right?
Second quarter, August, September, October. So we'd see that in November. Then November, December, January, we wouldn't see that until February. So we wouldn't see second quarter data till February.
Well,
Surely,
and
on the microphone.
I'd just like some clarification on when we're talking morale, where does that put team building activities? Does that fall into the morale part of that?
I think
When you
that's a
take them off,
professional,
where do you,
like, for
where do,
instance, if you
I just
cater
want to
lunch
make
for a
sure,
PD day,
right,
you have an offsite
that's right,
PD. That's clearly in what TJ's calling the professional side of things.
Professional.
but if you're taking your team out to go do an activity, be it miniature golf, be it swimming, be it Frisbee, whatever, what do you classify that? I just want clarification so that I know that things are getting classified correctly. So I need to know what those, how those items fall.
This is where, in my opinion, and I think Ed's gonna throw some at me. Day-to-day operations are the realm of the superintendent, and I think he gets to make that call, which pot it comes out of. That's my opinion.
I just
on
want to
one
bring
pot.
it to light so that we all are talking about
Have
the
we-
same
have we
things.
Done something like that?
Yes. It was in those numbers that I sent to you.
Oh, in that $5,000?
Yes.
Okay. I was just focused on candy and donuts.
No, I understand.
I didn't pull out everything else.
No, I understand, but that's why I wanted to bring it to attention so that we are all talking about the same things.
Is in that situation, was it a place of duty? Was it considered a place of duty? Sorry to get to the military terms of things. Was it considered a place of duty for all staff?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yes, it was. It was used as a professional development day for the elementary school, and they had the option of declining and providing that with a different pay.
So I would have had that fall into the professionals bucket.
I got a question on that. Actually, I got a couple questions.
Sure. Ask away.
How can you say it's a professional duty day and we're going to play miniature golf? What are we
It's a team
learning?
building exercise. That's done in the corporate world there. sir.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by the
but-
big wigs it's done, and they go spend outrageous money to go do stupid stuff. The
we're a
other thing I don't like that
501c3 nonprofit. That's not the corporate world.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I would like to ask Mark a question. Sir, in your previous jobs where you were, your previous schools, how many times did they actually go buy donuts, plus feed them lunch, go buy donuts, do this stuff, money like this? And they're all bigger schools.
So how many times did it happen?
Yeah, well, it don't have to be exact.
No,
I mean, did it
I
happen a
couldn't
lot?
tell you exact. So I would say, the offsite PDs,
Right.
we did rope courses. That was at least once a year. At least some schools did them. It wasn't every year. Purchasing donuts, what have you, by the school. We had a pretty active PTA that brought them in a lot.
Brought them in, didn't
We
they?
had families that brought their
Brought
own,
them in.
that brought some in. As far as the school, I was directed by my principal to pick them up on the way to school sometimes.
Sometimes.
So if I said once a month, I'd probably be pretty close. So, yeah, if you're asking, I'd say once a month, probably I got asked to bring something.
Okay.
So,
'Cause I know before that's I've always seen it done by PTA, PTO. The teacher make cinnamon rolls. Once in a while, the school did pay for it. But not every time.
So I think we diverged a tad because we've had two kind of sort of proposed solutions here. One is just monitor it, right, Paul? You didn't say cap it, just monitor it, see if it gets out of hand.
Or cap it. I think it's already out of hand, but like cap it to maybe 2,500 and then monitor it along the way.
So both kinds of the spending that TJ was talking about, or the lump?
I would say both. I mean, looking at some credit card expenditures, I mean, you already see just for the month of April, Teacher Appreciation Week, $500. Subway staff, $22. Dunkin' Donuts for custodians, $8. Breakfast for staff, $140. So, I mean, that's just in April alone. So I think that if we monitor it closely and have a cap, I think that keeps us from getting ourselves in a bind. And, you know, I know a lot of times the quick response is always, oh, well, is it budgeted? Well, just because something's budgeted doesn't mean it's not going to be looked at, going to be questioned. That's what we do as board members. So I feel it needs to be watched very closely, and I don't know, maybe cut it in half and see how that works out. And then from there, we can maybe make adjustments, do an amended budget for it. But, you know, that's just my 2 cents.
So just one bucket, not 2 buckets. And at 20, so you want to cap at 2,500.
I would say 1 bucket because I feel that there's room for abuse with 2.
Danielle, you've been kind of quiet. I'm sorry, Mrs. Combs.
It's okay. I'll support the board in what decision they make.
Whose job is it?
I have to write this up as an action. I need to know which way we're leaning.
Whose job is it to monitor this if the board don't do it? Whose job is it?
The superintendent has that responsibility.
It is my responsibility, and I'd like to point out that Pat, the directors, the principals, myself, we worked extra hard to ensure that we added more money than was projected to the bottom line for this year. I mean, you have people that do care about the spending. We've worked hard to ensure that our spending came in lower than was budgeted for last year. And I think that's important to give credit to the principals and to Pat and to the rest of the directors for that as well.
So we got 2,500. Is that something that we should bring forward for a vote? And if so, we want to do that later on in this meeting, or do we have it at the next board meeting? Because she needs to know for budget. So I think if we're going to move that way, that's an action later on in this meeting.
I don't know. I think that 25 is probably a little low because you got everything, dinners for all of them and things like that.
Meet in the middle, 35.
Yeah, that would probably be a little better. And then in January, if need be, we can always talk about it.
We won't see
again.
the number till February.
Okay, February. But
Well, I mean, because one thing that again, it's a generalization, and I understand where TJ was going with saying, hey, different buckets for such, because I mean, if you look at the end of the year or midway year, if you will, we had the gift cards, the jackets, the embroideries for the jackets. That's not counted in any of that 5,000.
Nope.
And so, but again, the reasoning is also appreciation, which I get. I support appreciation and so on. But again, would that be part of morale, or is that a whole nother line item? Is that part of the 12-4 from the super? You know, there's a whole lot that I feel that as a district we're already doing for our staff.
Would come straight from the board. The gift cards wouldn't have come out of that, in my opinion, because that came straight from the board. Yeah, come out of the school budget. Crap. That's not in that 5,000.
No, sir.
So what do you suggest, Ed? If you think 25 is low, what are you thinking? 3,500?
Yeah, well, probably 35, and then in February, if we need more for the end of the year, or if something changes.
And that would encompass any type of golf, team building, retreats, anything like that, right?
Is that outside the grant that we got to spend this year for them?
I don't think this covers grant money. That's a whole separate fund.
Separate.
And you are restrained by the constraints of the grant.
Yeah, that's correct. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. I thought the same.
Grants have their own rules about what.
Oh,
you can
no,
spend the
no,
money on.
I have no problem with that, but. Okay, so I get a grant for it. Why should I go crazy and spend it all like that way?
Well, the grant is for recruitment and retention.
True.
Which and with grants too, we're only allowed to spend it on that item as well, so we might as well spend it.
Hold on, Paul, we missed that. We were talking over you.
Oh, no, I was just saying, and when it comes to the grants, like you were saying, and Mr. Cooper was saying, was we're bound by the confines of said grant. So if it's there, we can only spend it in that nature. So if we do, I mean, we might as, if we have it, we might as well spend it for what the grant is for. We can't shift those funds over to other items.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
So in your budgetary preparation work, do you need us to call out specific account codes, line items, or is restricting morale spending to $3,500 a year enough for you to do your budget? Okay. Okay. I know you know, but
So I just want to make sure that we all understand what we're putting in that. What items we're allowed to be in.
I think it's basically the stuff that was in there this year, just capping it at 3,500.
And then if we're gonna vote later on to either increase, we'd need an itemized item with that sucked up that 3,500.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
just can't say
Well-
I spent $3,500. It's a-
We look at the budget again, you know.
While we're on that subject as well, what I would love to request is whenever we do catering, I would love to see an itemized receipt when we review and approve instead of just one big fat bill. I know that place that we've been using out of Pueblo West, they don't itemize it. And I personally would like to see that as a treasurer.
Will do. Board Assistant, Mrs. Combs is having a hard time getting back in the meeting. I wonder if she's clicking the right link. Okay, we got that one. Are you taking a break there, Mr. Clifford? Okay. I'm just gonna move on. No. End of the meeting. Can you? Well, if she came in normal, you could elevate her to panelist, right? I don't know if I have a signal. Apparently you do. There we go.
Sorry about that.
Back.
Yeah, I had to restart my phone. It wouldn't let me in.
Oh, lovely. Yes,
Sorry
sir.
about that.
While we were waiting on you, Mr. Lippert decided to take a quick break, so we were kind of sort of in an informal recess, waiting for Mr. Lippert to return.
Okay.
We're gonna pay for the lunches this next year.
That's in the budget, right? Staff lunches for next year? Okay. How much did we budget for that? Yeah. We came in right where we budgeted. That's nice.
I haven't had a chance to ask the business manager this, but because I just got that number for the year. I'd like to go back a couple of years pre-COVID and see how much money we were transferring over into the food account. Because I don't think we're going to have to do that this year, which is, I think, what the board and everybody kind of thought, that this would just take the place of the transfer, the money that we end up putting in there.
Yeah, you're always going to have to transfer. The only question is how much and how many times. That's really all it works out to. All right. So unless there's any further discussion on morale spending, hearing none. All right, we'll move on to PHE assistant principal. All right, so here's my thoughts, and then we'll let Ed pound on the table again. So we gave 2 superintendents go directive to make sure there's always a licensed administrator in the building. And we gave that same guidance to our previous superintendent, and we've given that same guidance to this superintendent. And with, I can't say the name because she told me to keep her name out of my mouth. Now that the one person who could cover that has retired, how else are we going to have a licensed administrator at PHE if we don't?
How many do we got at the high school?
Say again?
How many do we have at the high school?
2?
Is it just 2?
I don't know. I thought it was. Right, yeah.
Yep, administrators. They can run this school if you're out
Right now, we have 2, and next year I'll have 3.
at the high school.
Including yourself? No.
3 at the high school.
So if the PHE principal calls out sick, you want him to send one of his folks over there to be an administrator.
No, I would assume the superintendent would cover.
Yeah, what's wrong with superintendent?
What if the super?
I mean, that's what's happened in the past.
And that happens, but there was a time where I had both of my principals called out, and they were both out sick, and I was the only one with the district. If I'm at a different meeting and I'm with the BOCES, or I'm doing something where I'm out as well, that's why we wanted to have a backup in there. We're talking about the expansion of Prairie Heights and Prairie Heights growing. I think it is in our best interest to get somebody in there and start training them on how to step into that position for a number of reasons. If our principal decides to isn't able to be there, or for any number of reasons, I think it's always good to have backup and support.
And in the budget right now, it's proposed that 60% of his salary is paid for through the general fund, and 40%, because he's dual role, is the proposal. So ELG interventionist, is that the right phrase? And assistant principal. And so the proposal is 60% of his salary is general fund, and the other 40% is out of the ELG grant.
I just don't see the necessity for it. I mean, 2 superintendents ago, we had a dual role doing superintendent and principal without an assistant. I don't see.
And
I don't see creating it.
We had someone with a license in that building, so if the principal stepped out, the superintendent stepped out, there was someone with that license in that building.
Did that somebody get the extra pay?
Yep.
No.
Not the way.
So why not just give the gym teacher the extra pay?
But
I don't know,
Again,
we're
how do
getting
you
too
want to
many-
solve the
We're
problem?
getting too many chiefs.
Okay,
too
well, we
many
have to
chiefs.
solve a problem.
Okay,
If the Prairie Heights principal calls out sick, what does the board want to do for type D license coverage at Prairie Heights?
Did we, now I couldn't hear clearly. How many did Mr. Koopman say are at the high school?
And next year, he said
next
there'll be
year,
3.
he'll have 3, counting himself.
So then again, I mean, I guess the only time that we would ever run into this would be the off chance that our principal calls out and our superintendent's at a meeting somewhere else. The chances or how often that happens, does that necessitate
If we go
a
on
whole
an
new
S-
job position and creation?
What if we go on an SCAP visit and both the principal and superintendent are at the SCAP visit? That's a whole week. And as part of SCAP, we have to send people for the visit.
And how did we do it last year when we didn't have that individual wasn't always there either. You know, I think we're spending money crazily. Once somebody in a position,
Right, you don't go back, you're right. Now, we did have some kind of a setup. I forget the formal name for it, but like for that teacher that had that license at Prairie Heights, for every hour that she performed those duties, she got extra pay, right?
It was per day.
Okay,
yeah, per day.
And she stepped up. Originally it was, and it's on the. and it's
yeah, I
on-
saw that number. That was,
usually at 4 hours, but if she stepped up 4 hours. more than-
we could do that, but at the same time, I think that number, well, in the current one, that number's sad. But I don't know what you proposed. Yeah. Last year it was $25 for 4 hours.
That's
We got a problem to solve, right? If we think that the chances are small, like Paul is saying, that we are never going to get into that situation, or so rarely get into that situation, that we want to tap someone from the junior, senior high school. Your third one is also a teacher,
Third one's a teacher.
Yeah, teacher.
all right? So you pull a teacher? No, we're not going to pull a teacher. So we're pulling the dean or the principal.
I
If it
kind of
comes
have
out.
to,
You have a teacher there that's going to get the students trying to-
Right, if he goes through with it, right. But if, I'm putting myself in his shoes, if we poo-poo, that's the technical term, right? If we poo-poo the idea of him being assistant principal, then what's his motivation to go to his type D license?
Yeah, I don't think we should be held hostage like that. I don't think the problem necessitates
Oh, I'm not.
a whole new job position, and I don't see it. I don't.
What's the
doesn't make sense to me.
salary for the position?
30K out of the general fund.
And how much total?
50K, but again, not 50K.
Correct.
assistant principal.
We would have to post the job, correct? And take in all the applicants. We couldn't just give it to him,
No,
The
correct?
only job we're legally
No,
required to post
no, we
is
don't have
superintendent.
to.
We can hire from within.
Does he currently have his license, his D
Oh,
license?
he's going for it. Or will go for it.
He can get an emergency D license for this year, going through the program, just like Mr.
Right.
Yeah,
Jordahl is doing as well. And then he has his D license. Mr. Jordahl would have his D license. And, but he has to have the position in order to be able to get that D license.
How much does he make currently as a
I
PE
don't
teacher?
think that's something that we talk about in an open meeting, man.
Okay.
paperwork anymore.
It's not public knowledge.
No, but you can look and see.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Position-wise.
And just my 2 cents on something else, I don't think that we can go to Mr. Koopman and grab one of his teachers to go fill a PHE slot. He's already short-staffed all the year. I don't think it would be fair to him because he's planning ahead and having those individuals, certified, to grab them from him to help out. I'd say an emergency case. But if I see him scrambling already to try to fill classrooms.
So let me ask this question. This is for you, Mrs. Petrikaitis. What about, is there room in the ELG grant to make him a more full-time ELG interventionist?
We have to discuss that with Michelle, because she's the one who budgets that out, and I don't know how she is allocating those funds. I will not step on the toes on that.
Okay.
Those were her funds, and
I don't know if you guys heard the answer. She doesn't know the answer to the question. It's a ELG grant is being managed at by the Prairie Heights principal. Okay, that's fair. But that's certainly
So-
work we could do. What about 10? So we can
So-
have the job title, get his type D license. Is your
So
objection with the money or the position?
it's covered under a grant.
No, no.
Everything's done with the grant, disappears.
Not AP. Oh,
And
yeah.
now we're
right.
not gonna have money to pay him. It's coming out of our pay next year. After the grant's
Well,
over.
not next year. It's a multi-year grant, but
Okay.
in the future, yes. Then we would either have to cut them loose.
I've got a problem with that. We keep spending this money, hoping we're gonna have more money in the future. It-
Well, we can reapply for ELG every however many years the grants for.
we're going to put through.
So we had 2 years on this ELG grant, but your point is absolutely valid. But you just honestly don't think we need someone else there with a type D license?
Oh, no, we need somebody there. That's not the
How do we
problem.
get there from here?
Is that the only individual at PHE that's attempting it to get that certification? That's wanting to do it?
I believe so.
It was opened up
The
to
others-
everybody and only one
Mr.
Yeah,
said.
these are
Mr.
all
Cooper,
newer.
can you speak to that?
The others are all new.
Yeah, we don't have anyone else there right now who
Yeah,
wants to go for it or who is
Interested in
able to go
applying
for it.
that License.
We don't have another license there either.
No, do we have anyone else who's interested in applying for that license, trying to go down that path?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay. So. I guess that's work we need to do between now and next board meeting is determine determine how much, I'm sorry, I'll finish one thought before I start the next one. Determine how much money we could give him as an interventionist through the ELG and minimize the impacts of the general fund, but at the same time, he has to have the position. Doesn't matter what we pay him, but he has to have the position to get the 10th license. Paul? You look like-
Yeah, so on that, Miss Dunn never had that position when she had the license.
She had the
She had it
license.
before.
She
'cause
had it before.
she-
No,
she
agree,
was-
but I'm just,
yeah,
it just
she
feels
was
like we're being
principal.
strong armed into something that,
Got to go pay $25 every.
Yeah, she
year
was
or
a
something,
principal
renew
before him, Paul,
right.
before any of you guys came to the district.
Okay.
He has to have the title. Is that what you're
To get
saying?
the 10th license, right? He could work on his license on his own, go get his license, but that wouldn't be for next year. without the position.
But you have to have the position, right? To get the emergency room.
So I guess what I'd like to know is how often did it happen that both Michelle and Cooper were not available to be at the grade school to where we would have had Miss Dunn covered? How many times? We can find that out on the stipend or the money that she was paid. How many times did that actually happen? And does it necessitate creating an entire new position with salary, benefits, everything? And also, would he do dual role with assistant principal and gym teacher as well? Or would it be a single, hey, you're only going to be the assistant principal and we're going to hire another person to backfill the gym teacher?
That I don't.
We have a current employee that he's going to mentor in that position of the gym teacher. So he's going to be overseeing the gym class. He's also going to be the ELG interventionist. I believe that we can set the ELG at 60% of salary. We do not have anyone else there at this time. I know that we had 3 times just in the last payroll that I was not able to be there. Keep in mind, you guys are asking me to make sure that I'm meeting with, the best people and doing the master planning. And I'm assuming there will be additional things moving forward towards getting ready for that as well as we move towards November. I schedule a lot of appointments. And so if someone calls in on the day and I already have meetings scheduled, I'm either canceling the meeting to do the district work, to go to Prairie Heights, or I try to make it work as much as I can when I can. But 3 times in the last month, I was not able to do that.
No, right. But I'm saying not just you. I'm just saying that you and Michelle, to where in the last year, how many times did Mrs. Dunn have to be called upon to be the administrator? That's what I'm wondering. Is that going to be enough to necessitate an entire job position creation? I'm not really sure.
Well, we lost our principal twice for an extended period of time for
Call out
reasons that I don't want to go into right now. But because of law. But you guys were aware of the first one at the beginning of the year, and it happened again later on in the year, and there were a couple of other times as well. So I would say I wouldn't have put this into the budget if I didn't think that it was necessary for the reasons I said earlier, as well as having coverage, losing Miss Dunn.
But you could swap 20 to 30, 30 to 20.
I believe we could do 60% ELG grant and 40%. Yes, I believe we'd go 60, 40, 30,000, 20,000. Yes.
It's tough. This is tough. So what are we all thinking? What are we all feeling? What are we going to do? What do we want to do?
But we have to have it.
But we could swap it. We could make less come out of the general fund.
I feel like if we can do this next year as a trial run, see if it might help the leadership over there, might have some more resources over there, having someone else supporting Michelle over there. If it doesn't work out next year and the grant can't cover it, then we lose that position. But I think we owe it to the district to at least give it a soft go, especially if we can switch those numbers and the grant can cover the majority of it. It might help the support over there. And then maybe they won't need so much chocolate for morale. Just a thought.
I see what you did there. You brought that all the way back around.
It's kind of like that nurse. We have a grant that's due in 2 years.
Yep.
We all know it's only 2 years.
Yep. She knows it's 2 years.
as long as we have this grant, we can continue
To keep her.
to keep this individual, like
Yes.
we're talking about right here with PHE.
Yep.
With the understanding we start losing this money, that position goes away.
And maybe
Unless we-
he blows us, maybe he blows us out of the water and he's a really great, assistant principal, and maybe Michelle will want to grow somewhere else. And I mean, it might at least put someone else in that pipeline to fill it if needed.
And we may also grow into needing an assistant principal if PHE keeps growing the way it is.
And have billing in the people first.
Yeah, Paul, looked like you were wanting to say something. No. It's just normally when you lean in, that's when I figured you wanted to talk. I thought I saw you lean in. Anyway, all right. So again, we're not 100% for sure that the ELG has available funds for that swap. So let's do that research and bring that.
Mr. Underwood, I am being told we have the money in the grant to
Oh.
put it to the system.
All right, so then we can make an action on that. Do we really need an action, or Kyle, can you just handle it?
I serve at the pleasure of the board.
Mrs. Petrikaitis here. And so then our formal vote on that approach will be second read of budget, regular board meeting.
Sounds good.
That's
Agreed.
all right. Anything else on that? All right, that brings us to staff lounge upgrades. Ed?
Morale, here we are with morale again. Why do we need a couch? A couch. You have one period to sit and do your stuff and get ready for your classes. We can all go to the couch and sit on the couch. I disagree with the couch in a break area. If you go to the break area up here, you don't find the teachers all sitting in the staff lounge. You find a few of them that go in there for lunch, and they're almost never in there again except for get coffee. Why do we need to decorate, make it all beautiful, put a couch, nice easy chair, get all that? No, this is, no, I totally disagree with any of that happening.
If I may just respond and tell you where this came from. This came directly from the SCAP. This was directly requested by both schools that they improve the lounges. And this was a staff request. And so I'm not saying we're doing this. I'm saying that this was a request from your teachers. We put it in the budget because it was requested by them of the board, and you're welcome to take that out.
I forget, what's the bottom line on that? K or 100? 3,500. Yeah, if it was K, it's gonna be what in the holy world?
I personally am okay with it. Letting them be comfortable, letting them have a place to decompress. I understand. Maybe we can find something on bargain. Maybe we can find something, a good couch on sale somewhere for both of them. 30, I mean, hopefully we can stay under budget on that one.
So hold on, I know we all have something to say. I forgot when I started this meeting, right? So the whole point of this meeting is for us to tweak the budget so that when we have our regular board meeting, we don't vote no on the budget because there's one line item that we disagree with. So that's why I called this meeting, so we could all get on the same page, come to a common understanding. Now, that doesn't mean you have to vote yes either on the budget. It just was the idea behind this.
I don't know. How about
Was
like,
it the,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, was it the majority of the staff that was requesting it, or was it a few? And or is it a request to cater to a small minority?
It was the majority, yes. The reason they don't use the lounge, and Mr. Koopman and I have had this conversation, they don't use the lounge for high school that much. They just feel that it's very sterile. It's uncomfortable. They feel the same way over at the junior. Look, I'm the last one to be talking about this, and I don't know how Mr. Koopman feels, but I believe the term that was used, it could use a woman's touch to just warm it up and make it a little more welcoming.
So would that 3,500 be for couches as well as like more like decorations, maybe some plants? Someone mentioned they wanted plants for morale. So I mean, would that 3,500 encompass like just an overhaul of all of the teachers' lounges?
That's just elementary, Prairie Heights.
Couches, plants, paint, and I'm pretty sure that I can talk Michelle into splitting that between both schools and trying to get that done, and maybe we could find some bargains, like you said. Nobody's trying to fleece the district at all. I think that we try very hard to be cognizant of how we spend. So if we needed more than that, I would be more than happy to come back to the board and say, hey, are you okay with this? And this is why.
So I look at it this way, right? We're still getting the one-time, if you will, ESSER funds, right? So this is not a recurring expense. We're not raising the bottom line. One-time purchase on non-recurring base.
And this was requested from Prairie Heights Morale. High school never requested this, nor junior high.
Yeah, but the superintendent just said that
He said he'll
he's gonna
split
do
it.
both of them for the same amount of money.
He said he could try to talk to Michelle to split it.
Well, he's her boss. You can tell her to split it.
So, well, here's a question, and I brought up that last boarding. We never came to a consensus on it. On the 12,400 for a cap for a calendar year instead of a one-time every day could, which again, he's not going to.
Oh, we talked about modifying that.
We talked about modifying, but we never came to a consensus.
We said once per calendar year, right?
But I don't know if we voted on that.
No, but we can certainly have it for the regular board meeting.
So if we put that on there, and you know, I haven't seen that even in this last year that Kyle came anywhere near that amount as a whole anyway. Something of this nature, it could fall under that instead of having to be an actual budget line item if it's that imperative. Just throwing that out there as an idea, but
Yeah, that I understand that point of view, but at the same time, the whole idea behind this 12.5 cap on basically emergency spending is the way I view it, is it's a non-budgeted thing. And so we know this is a request. We know this is something we want to entertain. We either do or do not want to entertain it. And we either do or do not want to adjust the dollar value that's in it. I think it would be irresponsible of us not to punt, basically. Just
I appreciate that comment. I do, but I would feel very uncomfortable spending money on staff lounges that wasn't budgeted. That
That's
would
fair.
make me very uncomfortable.
that's fair. That's fair.
all right. Since we lost Mrs. Combs for a second, and I need to take a bathroom break, take an informal recess. Hey, Danielle,
Yes.
I want to thank your phone for the opportunity to have a bathroom break.
No problem. I wish I could go and then have a bathroom break, but it is far too loud in that school.
All right, are we ready, Mr. Swayze? Okay, so then I would make a recommendation based on everything that I've heard to address this issue with a single letter change to the budget, and instead of staff lounge upgrades, staff lounges upgrades. Both lounges get an upgrade. We're not changing the dollar. That would be my proposal moving forward. What is everybody's thoughts?
I agree.
I missed that, Mr. Underwood. Could you repeat that, please?
Oh, yeah. So just add an S. So instead of lounge upgrades, lounges upgrades. So both lounges get an upgrade for the $3,500.
I'll be honest, right now, I'm not going to spend huge amounts.
Fresh coat of paint,
That's all he wants.
couple of live plants. Yeah.
I have a bigger plan that's not, it has more space involved.
Okay.
And it's.
Hey, what if we were to do something of like a contingency, as in, I know there's a lot of large companies that need charitable donations. And if we see that, hey, 5 requests been made out to like IKEA or other businesses, all of them get denied. Hey, yeah, we'll move forward with it. But why not see what our surrounding businesses
What
can
happened
do
to
to
our
help
grant
out?
writing committee?
I'm sorry?
What happened to our grant writing committee? That's a great suggestion. We get the grant writing committee on it.
Just trying to look at other avenues.
No, that's a great idea.
I agree. That's a great idea. We should certainly be reaching out on that.
So we'll move forward with my proposed change on the contingent that we move forward trying to get some grants for it instead of paying for it. And if at the end of the day we put 3,500 in the fund balance, we put 3,500 in the fund balance. Oh my God, you guys so totally missed that. Mr. Koopman just said he wonders if we can get a grant from IKEA because our school looks like it.
That's great thinking.
That sounds like a great, project for his new assistant principal.
No.
Hey, Paul, one point of clarification. Is your 1,500 a hard deadline?
I mean, always up for discussion. I mean, again, kind of like what we always say, we'll go the way of the
No, your
board.
time that you have to leave.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So keep that in mind. All right, so now what action, if any, do we need to take on the lounge thing? Mr. Superintendent, I'm assuming you can cover that.
Yeah, I can take care of that. We'll just make sure, I'll talk to Ms. Petrikaitis, make sure that's put in the budget that way.
All right. Ma'am, is that enough data?
Yes.
All right,
I have my note here.
okay.
Add an S and 5 by 10.
Definitely add an S.
We'll add an S. I will work with other parties too.
Okay. I don't really know how much we're breaking the rules here because boy, we're giving direction left and right without a vote, but we'll see. All right. That brings us to 5.
Well, Randy, I would say that we're having the discussion to vote upon the budget for next board meeting. So I wouldn't say.
Well,
we're
right.
pushing
That's
that.
it.
exactly
So
what we're
if
doing.
these changes are made to the budget, then
Then
next,
we'll vote.
then next
Yeah.
meeting,
Yes.
our votes will be the formalization of that.
Right.
Correct. I don't think we're pushing the envelope too bad.
No, we're not.
All right, next one is classified pay table adjustment. So, and maybe we just call it pay table adjustment because Mr. Koopman has brought forward change to what we call the extra performance pay table. So this is how much we pay coaches and fixed stipends and things like that. And I forwarded that to all of you if you'd like to review it. My only concern is that in the manner it was presented didn't make it clear to me what the increases were. It's just like a old table, new table, and I had to go up and down and compare. I was a little busy, so I didn't get a chance to quickly run through it. So can you give us like a real quick,
So we were just going through this, I think we were just making sure that stipends has been a point of contention in the past. And I'm just trying to take that out of the mix by putting down what we have. So when we look at it, the only changes, if you were to look at the policy as it is, it has a policy that was revised in 2019.
mhm,
It was reviewed in 2021.
right,
However, somewhere in the mix, what's on in policy wasn't always necessarily what was being done in practice. So this combines the both of them. So I think, so for example, if you were to look at one increase, the high school assistant coach, that 1950 is an increase from 1800. Well, why is that? Right now, assistant coaches' pays are 60 or pretty close to 60% of within range of numbers of what the head coach's pay is. It's comparative to, we looked at, I believe if I'm not mistaken, Pat had 3 other schools in the spreadsheet that we looked at that we're close to. And we're comparative, we're a little bit on the high end of those, but again, we have more coaching stipends available because we have more sports in some of the other schools as well. So really, it just comes down to a place of 60% for assistant coaches. And then some of it was just hard to read. It said, for example, it said match wits $900. Well, of 2 what? 2 for 1 season. There's 2 seasons. There's a high school season. There's a junior high season. So we just went in and delineated the lines out a little bit further. I know it said high school assistant basketball coach B and G, but if that's the same person, it's impossible to do. So we just want to make sure that it looks like it's 2 people. So if people are looking at employment at Hanover School District, we want to make sure they understand these are the stipends for those positions, and these are the years for them. So that's how that came about. If there's any increase, I believe if there were only 2, it would be in that range of high school assistant football, volleyball, wrestling, track, football, volleyball, and junior high head football, volleyball. Again, the reasoning is it falls in line with the percentage from the head coaching position on down. And those were set by board policy back in 2019. So the certified stipends, again, we looked at those, and I think it's talking with Ms. Pat about the sponsorships. Not all of those, again, were laid out to say what they are. So like now it says there's 1 senior class sponsor. Now, if we want to have 2 people split that, that's on them. But they need to understand there's only 1 stipend, and they can split it 2 ways, but it's a total of $13.50. That has not been laid out in the past that way. So again, we're just trying to delineate down that if we say, hey, you're going to be a class sponsor, it's yours, it's your stipend. However, if you want help, you're going to split it with somebody else, but the total is $13.50. We're not going to be into having 2 people be the senior class sponsor for $13.50 each. So I think we just delineated out what that is. Even the district assessment coordinator, we labeled that as a district position, not a high school, not an elementary, not a junior high. It's a district level position. They know when they go into it that stipend, you're covering the district assessment coordinator for the whole district, from elementary school dibbles through goal testing, through the high school CMAS and whatever. You're the person. So, and then we went a step further. I just said in that first column, again, how many people are assigned to each of them. So the school assessment coordinator, the elementary school gets one, the junior, senior high school gets one. And again, if they want to split it into two, they can, but they're splitting one $600 stipend 2 ways. So again, I think it's just we're just trying to get down to the fact that we identify who is doing which job and where they are. So that's how, student council. Elementary has a student council. We have a junior high student council. We have a high school student council. For the work that's outside of the school hours, there's a stipend. Just try not to surprise anybody with that. That's the what is that one? That one looks at
So there's more rigor to the process.
absolutely more rigor to it. And again, some
More
of them,
structured.
Less subjective interpretation.
yeah, because it has been interpreted before in quite a few ways. And I think we're just trying to take that out of the mix and look at it and go, here's what it is. I mean, in the past, there were 10 calendar committee positions. I don't think we ever had 10 people in the room together to talk about a calendar. So it was knocked down to 4, 2 at the elementary, 2 representatives from the junior, senior high school. I think that's fair. We get people from both sides talking about the calendar. Again, the student council is probably my best example of just having fairness across the district, because it is a district stipend sheet, not a school building stipend sheet. So we have to be fair across the whole district. And then the notes to the side, talking about certain sports having players, that falls in line with not just what we want, but again, as far as what is needed for players, when to offer sports. We just fall in line with other schools and what those are. So
Is that where you come up with those numbers, 8 or fewer? No, we've never done that. Few.
It was
always, you have to have 16 or more.
well, the reasoning, again, when you look at it as far as when you start to pay assistant coaches.
Right.
So if you only have, in this case, 7, let's say 8 football players on a football field, you have 8 varsity football players. You don't have a junior varsity, and you that's it. You have 8. And at that point in time, you can cover 8 kids with 1 coach. Now, if we get more than that, that's the first time that you'll have a paid assistant. So the conversation that we had with Coach Decker on this one in particular was, look, we could have a team. I can have a coach. He can have an assistant coach at 8.
Right.
He's just not getting paid. It's going to be a volunteer assistant.
Right.
If you were to go, he could have 14 kids. And if he doesn't want to pay his assistant, he doesn't have to. All this says is that at 8, we have the ability to pay an assistant coach if we want to. That's all we're saying, is that we have the opportunity. Not saying that we're going to, but
Okay.
and we're not saying that we don't have a team. We're just saying, look, we don't have a paid assistant.
So if
Okay?
I was a head coach of one of those teams,
Mhm.
I don't have to take on assistant.
You don't have to, but if you want a volunteer assistant, that's fine. They're going to be a straight
Okay,
volunteer.
But if I need an assistant at 16, they get paid.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Junior high still has a stipend. We have a team. We have a paid stipend for that.
'Cause I
for
don't
the
think
junior
we
high.
should pay them if they're under 16 players. I don't.
For,
Football.
Okay.
16. If a coach can't handle 16 players, he needs to go find another profession.
well, you would say in the basketball gymnasium, if you don't have 10, you can't even scrimmage.
Yeah, you
So
can't.
what's your number? So where do you fall with having a paid assistant?
Paid assistant.
If you got 7,
Okay.
if you have 7 people, you can handle 7 by yourself.
Yeah.
8, you might say, hey, I need my bigs to go down there. I'm going to take the point guards down here. Well, now
True.
you got to have 2 coaches. Okay, now if you want to pay them or not, that's your call.
Mr. Swayze, Mr.
All this says,
Koopman,
Hey, we have the
Right,
opportunity
I
to
got
pay
it.
them at a number. If they have
Again.
16, you bet we should be paying an assistant.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that
Okay.
under that number, we're not going to.
I agree with you.
Okay,
I totally agree.
then we're on the same page.
Mr. Cooper, you had something?
I just wanted to relay some information from our athletic director. One of his concerns is safe football, since that's what we're talking about. You have one coach who's out there, who's gone to the game and he's coaching the game, but you have a student that's injured, or he needs to take somebody to the hospital, or he's got a problem that comes up. The athletic director's concern was if he wasn't on site, then he doesn't have someone else to do that and step in for those emergency situations. And that was what he brought to my attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
One
else?
question from Mrs. Petrikaitis along these lines. Do you think the overall budgetary impact of this new structure and scale will be an increase or decrease to the budget? Or a wash?
Slight increase, but yeah,
It's not.
Okay.
yeah, I don't,
That will not have a material impact.
yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't look like it's much of a difference. I mean, a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
No, that's fine. Okay. Thank you, sir.
What was her response? What was Miss Pat's response?
Oh, it's basically a wash. She says it's such a minor increase that she didn't even calculate it.
Yeah, it doesn't
Not
look like,
material is what she said.
right, it doesn't look like it's a big change, Paul, at all. It looks real close. It's just more clarification than anything else.
All right, so now what, this is something that the real agenda item I wanted to talk about here was, we bumped the the certified pay scale by 5.5%. We're doing 3% increases for administration, and we're keeping the classified pay table the same. Is that what we want to do?
Classified, just to clarify, that was increased in January.
Understand? Yep, absolutely. Relevant information.
What was relevant information?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot she's not on my, that pay table, the classified pay table was, raised in January. So the table that is in the budget right now is the one that we up in, and I forget the percentage, but basically we went to $15 base from, well, we did it incrementally,
Yeah, 12,
right? But we did that incrementally over like 2 years, right? Oh, we did that straight jump?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that we did a straight jump from 1235 to 15 in January as the base.
right.
All right.
Yes.
And everybody is getting a step. So
everybody's
there
getting a
is,
step.
there is that. There is going to be a step for everybody.
Okay.
Well,
I
Well, then-
retract my unspoken motion to consider increasing the table unless somebody else wants to consider increasing the table.
Oh, I get a question. So we'll just take the bus driver that's been here the longest. His base was 15, but he's still up to where he was, whatever step he was at.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a step also.
It doesn't change your spot on the table.
No,
That's what I'm.
No,
no. And we did make an adjustment to those 3 or 4 higher end
Right,
requirements on that table. There
Right.
was there was an increase to that.
okay.
So that there, in that regards, that yes, those bus drivers, the CDLs,
Yeah, the one that's, oh, I wouldn't worry about that, but the one that's been there the longest, yeah.
those, that differentiation
Right.
between a van driver and somebody who's gone and gotten their CDL,
Yeah.
we did compensate
Make a
some to increase
difference.
that end of the table.
Right. So we're happy with the classified pay table of everybody? Danielle nodded north and south.
well, I do have a question for Miss Pat on our, what's the minimum for salary range for, exempt, non-exempt, and what are we held to as the years go by for increases?
So let me field that one because I was trying to solve that problem. This pay table, the classified pay table, which is GCBAE, has nothing to do with exempt. And so that's the problem I was trying to solve last weekend. We're trying to figure out where and how to make exempt employee salaries structured and logical. And I couldn't solve the problem. There's too many variables, years of experience, professional certifications, et cetera, that we'd have to have a 4-dimensional table and it would be ugly. And then during the 2-hour conversation I had with Mrs. Petrikaitis, we meandered through a bunch of subjects and landed on exempt. And so $865 a week for a 52-week employee, that was the number. I think it was
Thought
$865.
it was 9 something, but I'd have to go back. and
But
look.
anyway, so there's a certain, if you call an employee exempt, you have to pay them a certain amount. Now, granted, because we play with days of weeks and hours a day, and weeks employed, contractually, that's going to vary by whichever particular parameters are in your contract, right? So if you have a 40-week contract, well, then, we're not paying someone $865 times 52, we're scaling it, right? You tracking me?
But here's my question. Just because someone gets to that 45,000 minimum, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be exempt. We
No,
choose to
correct.
give them that exemption to where, but then if we do call them exempt, and we're held to automatic pay increases that the state is going to hold us
Yes,
to, if I
and it's
understand
ugly.
correctly.
It's basically $5,000 a year for the next 3 years is what you
Well,
said.
and that they've only forecasted out for those many years.
Right, and they've
but-
only
But
forecasted.
there's
that.
also, there's also some other requirements. It's not just a pay requirement. There's some other requirements
Yep.
about supervision and responsibility and
Right.
those things that fall into calling somebody
Right.
an exempt.
And so I think we need to be really, really, really careful. This is for you, Mr. Superintendent. Where you really need to get with Mrs. Petrikaitis and make sure that, one, those people that we're currently calling exempt actually are exempt according to the rules, and that we're paying them what we're supposed to be paying them according to the rules. And then anyone that you're going to consider to be calling exempt next year also meets all those rules.
Yes, I agree with that. Mrs. Petrikaitis and I had this conversation earlier I guess yesterday.
Okay.
I was unaware that Colorado's was different from federal, and I was under the impression that we fell under federal guidelines, not Colorado guidelines, because we do under everything else under the DOL, or most of everything else. But I think not only Ms. Petrikaitis, I think our attorney probably should glance at that as well.
Are there any positions that you're planning on moving to exempt from non-exempt, and any reason why, knowing that we would be held to that standard of pay increase automatically?
I don't know now that I've seen this. I need to do some more research. I did have a position in mind because they would be directing a lot of our communications, but now I'm not positive. So I would need to figure that out.
Okay, I just want to, just be transparent and clear, just so we don't get ourselves to a position where we're held to a standard that we're not prepared for by the state of Colorado.
Oh, 100%. And I had thought the number was, I think I thought it was 35.8 or Colorado's, and I just looked there. It's not only 45 this year, it's 50 next year, and then 55. It's insane. So yeah,
That's an automatic
Yeah, it's
11% pay increase.
Well, and to add on to that, it starts in January. The pay scales for all those labor laws are January through December.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
then we are looking at another issue come January, since we run from July through June.
So what you're saying is, if we were to put someone at 45,000 exempt employee right now, they would get 11% pay increase in January to 50,000.
That's what. it
Basically,
says.
yep.
So then,
Required.
golly, that's a lot of pay increases. All
yeah,
right.
it's insane.
We need to be really careful about what we're calling exempt.
Yes,
Okay. I think that covers that, which is
Okay.
no change to the classified pay table. Right, everyone? Danielle, you good? Moving on? All you
Yes,
good?
I am.
Okay. All right. Additional, extra, and stipend pay.
What's considered additional?
Mr. Lippert asked to discuss this.
And I've been working with Ms. Petrikaitis on this one as well. It seems that there's a lot of those out there, and I was just trying to get clarification. on how much of it is out there and who gets it. So there's more discussion needing to be had on it. Mr. Koopman came out with this extra performance salary. Great, that's a great explanation on some of this, but I'm just not clear on the additional, the extra, and the stipends. How many of them are out there? Who gets it? And it's not up to me to say who gets what. But when we're looking at such huge numbers as in increases for pay this year, we're looking at this budget, and we're seeing these huge numbers that are much different than last. I kind of want to know where that money's coming from. And it's just not in the pay increases. So it's got to come somewhere else. There's got to be more to it than just what we see with a pay increase. Those numbers are far exceed those numbers.
Now, a couple of years ago, or was it last year around this time, one of the two, I think it was 2 years ago. We collectively as a board basically said, hey, if it ain't on the sheet, nobody gets paid it. Or if it isn't on the other two pay tables, other than administrators, which we're gonna address, right?
Somebody
So
was abusing it, that's why.
two superintendents go, yeah. And so I think that's where TJ is coming from. So you, future work, is that the,
Well, okay, I'll throw this out there. Okay, I see these discussion items, 5 TAC 1 to 5 TAC 6. One of them, the assistant principal got it. I'll exempt that one from that list. Why don't I see one on here arguing better desks and chairs for students? Why don't I see better teaching aids for students? We're debating teachers and staff. How much more are we going to give to them? And not how much more are we going to give to the kids?
well.
That's where
so
my-
in all
Whenever I
fairness,
see this, I sit there and say, why isn't a teacher or somebody recommending such a huge amount towards our kids that we have to have this discussion item? Why don't I see, I want new desks and chairs for every student in this school? And let us discuss that one, because that's a big number. But instead, we're discussing big numbers of how we're increasing everybody else's pay and new lounge furniture. I don't see anything saying new desks, new chairs,
Nothing for the students.
so, well, I wouldn't say
maybe
that.
even hire tutors.
Yeah.
Why don't I see that as an additional staff member, a tutor that comes in and helps out on the weekends? I know we have stipends that we help with doing that stuff. But I don't know, I wish I would see more big numbers going towards students.
So in all fairness, sir, these items on the agenda were just what board members were concerned about with the current budget.
Yes,
So that's my only defense. It's
I
not
looked at the current budget and I didn't see big numbers in
That's-
there for what I'm saying.
absolutely.
We,
So I
we
can't
do
say
have,
that's
we do,
something that's not in that budget.
we do have after-school tutoring in the instructional line that our teachers do after-school tutoring at the Prairie Heights. And and we also have that at the junior, senior high school as well. It's just listed under the instructional line. It's not broken out.
Right, but I can walk into any of these classrooms and see tables and chairs and everything else in there that's been there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Who knows? Some of it's hand-me-down from other districts.
That is true.
Yeah.
Why aren't we
About 4 years
discussing
ago.
more comfortable atmosphere for our students to teach or to get taught and feel more comfortable in their classrooms?
We ask teachers to put that in their budgets if that's what they want, if they feel they need that for their classrooms.
So the teachers said nothing for the kids. but they want their pay raises. Is that what you just said, sir?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I believe they advocate for their students as well, and they make those requests year to yearly in their budget.
And I have seen where they put in a needs and a wants list and gone through in the past and they've approved so on. So I have seen that take place.
Yeah. And
We did just have Lindsay Lynch. Sorry.
No, you please, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we did have Lindsay Lynch just bring forth a good curriculum to us for the students. So I definitely think that the teachers should be encouraged to definitely put in all requests to us.
Movie bid also.
Yeah, and also out of, we about multiple months in a row, we asked the teachers staff everything that they wanted, and not just the teachers, all staff. And I think the one major thing that we turned down was playground modifications to PHE, because we didn't want to spend that kind of money at PHE on the chance that we actually are successful with all the master plan stuff and actually have to move it money in the end. So that was really the one big ticket item that was asked for that wasn't granted.
Right. I mean, so far I haven't gotten a single defense.
No, there's no defense that I have.
I haven't gotten a single defense. It's
I
the
have
teachers
clarifying
asked for stuff for them. I mean, and hey, I love our teachers. I love our man. I tell you what, I love our administrative staff. We do great things for these kids, and they dedicate so much time and effort. I'm with it. They deserve everything they get plus more. I'm with you. I just wish we would have this discussion more on bettering the environment for our students as well. Why we didn't come up with an idea of new desks, new chairs, teaching aids. And that's just where I'm having a disconnect when I look at the budget and I see these huge numbers of increases, but none of them are directed directly at the kid. Indirectly, yes. Paying our teachers more, got it. I'm with it. But not directly impacting our kids, increasing their ability to learn in the classroom, making it more comfortable. So I guess that's where I'm having an issue, having discussions on this stuff right here. I wish there was more in there for our students.
Valid point.
So I'll leave that as it is.
What's the additional pay? I know what the extra and the stipend is. What's the addition?
Don't
I
look
don't
at
know.
me.
Okay,
He
that's
was
cool.
talking to me about extra pay, stipend pay, this, that, and the other,
We're good.
and then he used the word additional, so I just threw it in there on the.
I was just wondering. I got the other two.
I'm going after, years ago when I was here and I was looking at a budget and I saw all those extra pays in
Oh, yeah, okay.
there. Okay.
Yeah, I knew what that was.
So my biggest thing was, what are those extra
Yeah.
pays?
What are they for?
That was
How
a-
much are they?
Yeah,
Where
that
are they
was-
going to? Why? Things like that.
Right.
That was a couple superintendents ago. Yeah, I know what it is.
So we just need to make sure, sir.
So I appreciate you opening the door to that, Mr. Lippert, because that is definitely something that I'm sure the building principals would be more than willing to go through classroom by classroom and look at what needs to be upgraded. I think some of it is transitional teachers. People have been in and out of the classrooms. Last year in the middle school, we had 2 teachers covering 4 cores. This year we had 4. So I think it's just that transitional piece of not knowing what has been available, new teachers, not understanding what maybe the budget had available in it
Right.
for them. So that might be part of it. Obviously, I need to do a better job then of letting our teachers know that this has been a conversation, that let's look at what it looks like. What is a desk costing? You know, to put 30 desks in a classroom at $150 a desk, you're talking $4,500 per classroom for new desks. I know a teacher did request new desks for next year. They're a little bit more expensive because they have to do with their math specific. They work out off the trapezoid method so that the teachers can use ankles and whatever to help. The desk actually becomes a teaching tool. So that has been requested in one instance, but I think it's a valid conversation to be had, again, to uniform some of the hand-me-downs we've gotten from other districts. I know when I put chairs out for graduation last weekend, I saw a Shriner on a lot of the bottoms of chairs. And I think we can do better. I'm with you. I think we can do
100%.
better. And I broached that conversation with someone else by saying, look, I love our athletic chairs as much as the next person. But I think for a dignified event like a graduation, we should be having some type of arm-rested chairs, you know, up front, a little bit more dignified than just the athletic chairs that the basketball and volleyball team sat on. That's just me. Now, did it look good? Did we have a great presentation? Absolutely. I think it went well, and I think the parents appreciated the efforts that we went to. But can we step up our game? Yeah, I think we can as well. That's just a deeper conversation, I think, with Ms. Pat and the budget and where we go forward again, as we look at money going out. Some of the money that is being spent on students does come down to students, or on teachers does come down to students in certain ways. Curriculum is one. We've approved 2 different curriculums this year. Hasn't been done for a while. I think that'll trickle down to our kids in the long run. Is it important that they're comfortable while they're learning? Define comfort, I guess, might be the way that we look at that. So again, I think we have this opportunity. I think it is, now that it's out there, we definitely can look at it. Just understand that when we go to revitalize a classroom, whether it's carpet, whether it's paint, whether it's desks, there's going to be some set expenditures there. And again, maybe just a one-timer, but they are going to be expensive, sir.
Sir, and it's,
So you and I are on the same page, I believe.
that's great. And I even heard a great idea that you had where a computer's feeding it to a monitor or a TV, much cheaper than a smart board.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's wonderful. But you can go to Sam's and pick up this TV for a few $100s.
Mhm.
Why don't I see one of these things in every classroom on this budget? These things are cheaper by the day.
Mhm.
Go to Sam's, go to Costco, you know, computers, we have them.
Yeah.
Let's implement it. Not a one-on-one with a smart board. Let's do it. What if a kid can't see that smart board at the beginning?
Mhm.
If for a few $100s, we could put us
Boom.
right there next on the side of the classroom,
Yeah.
the one that can't see that, I don't know. These are all simple things that wouldn't cost a whole lot.
Nope, not a whole lot. And the next one will be the sound device that goes with it. There's a
Yeah.
sound device that says.
Bring it to the
Surround sound,
student.
put it all the way
We-
around.
not necessarily
We
surround
do have the TVs in the budget over at Prairie Heights. We are doing that over there.
She threw some in there, and then again, I know we're gonna be putting some in my personal one out of this next school year, so.
Yeah, that was really cool. I heard
It
that
works out
idea. I
well,
was like,
and it
wow.
does, and we're gonna make some changes there as well, but it'll come out of my budget more than anything else. So we're okay with that.
Another great thing would be teachers being at the board meetings around the budget, so they're aware of it, because I don't believe teachers are aware of what's going on.
So
Teachers should be
Mr.
required.
Mr. Cooper and Mr. Koopman, I don't know the mechanism. Okay, but in years past, teachers were
Yes.
required
Yes.
to attend at least one board meeting a year. I would love to see that. Me personally.
But not just any old meeting one. How about one that's important, like the budget? That is seriously important. Let's have some teachers in here.
Hey, Ed, start with 1. And then you can increase.
I'm gonna smack-
Baby steps,
I'm gonna
right, Paul?
smack you, Paul.
I think it comes back. down
Miss-
to communications from
Well,
leadership out.
Some of the teachers, I'm not gonna name names, but some of the teachers said that they were told they weren't allowed to go to meetings. I didn't say it was in your building.
Again, communication going out needs to improve. And so, we can take care of that.
All right, I'm sorry. So your original emphasis of this discussion item is future work.
Yes, I think it's a lot of it's gonna just be me sitting down with Miss Petriklis and Petrikaitis and getting this, getting me, I know, I gave you a Spartan name, Petriclus. That was for me for getting clarification on that. That's all that was.
Well, and I will say, TJ, there's a lot of that I agree with you on. There's a part of me that almost wishes that some of these improvements and increases could almost be incentive based, saying, hey, let's hold off on spending on the upgrades in the break rooms when we see next year's NWEA scores. And hey, they moved up, we got an increase, cool, let's spend the money there. And then that puts an emphasis back on teaching for our teachers. But I know that we can't do contingencies, but.
Right. We have to commit to it or not commit to it. Now, again, kind of sort of like what we were talking about at the very beginning, we could not do these things and then address it in an amended budget. I mean, if that's an approach you want to take.
No, not me.
Okay. We're good on that one, 5-5?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Brings us to 5.6, Director of Operations salary range. So as we are all aware, we have had some difficulty in hiring a Director of Operations, and the superintendent was hesitant to offer above $40,000 for the position. And
47.
oh, 47. Oh,
Huh?
I thought it was 40, but regardless,
I had 40 on the line item.
yeah,
It's 40.
but regardless, we need to give the superintendent a no kidding, this is the most we can offer someone number.
Let me start this discussion because I kind of brought this one up. Looking at that proposed budget, if you look at expenditures, under operations, 27% of the expenditures of the district is under operations, as in transportation and maintenance. And that coming off that pie chart, I think it was page 3 of the budget. So do you go cheap? Someone who can't manage a budget, manage their own budget, or do we pay a little bit more to where we have somebody that can manage that budget? I know, Miss Pat, you do it. You do the big picture. I got it, man. And how you keep control of that is amazing. But you can't watch every little bit of spending that operations person has to spend. But if you look at that budget, 27% of the district, and now you're going to pay that director one of the least amounts in the school. We don't direct who gets paid what. I got it, because there's so many other positions on this in the school that we didn't create the salary range for. I don't remember it ever coming up to a vote on some of these new billets. So this one right here, I just say that, you know, we need to look at this stuff, and if we go cheap, we're going to get cheap, especially when we're talking about that kind of money. This isn't just fixing an air conditioner or a boiler. This is managing a budget. And like I said, look at the pay charts of that proposed budget. Look at the pie charts. 27% of the expenditures for the district. That's huge. We can't go cheap on this, guys, gals.
Well, and one thing to keep in
Somebody
mind
that's
too.
able to manage that kind of funding.
Mr. Ricks, go ahead.
Well, and of course, the assumption is going to be that this person will be an exempt employee. So we already know bare minimum in January, they will be at 50,000. So that already gives us at least a bare minimum where we can't go anywhere below that, knowing that it's going to happen.
Yeah, we got a budget for it. Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? It's which that change. I mean, that does change a lot of aspect on a lot of it, but again, it's one of those, you kind of get what you pay for.
Yeah, you do.
So what are we willing to pay?
Well, is that us as a board's job to come up with how much do we willing to pay?
Well, what I'm trying to avoid is, okay, I'm gonna throw out a crazy hypothetical scenario, okay? Let's say we get that guy from Homes on Homes. We get Mr. Holmes, and he is so awesome. We want to pay him $75,000 a year. Superintendent brings it forward to us, and we vote no, that's too much money. Trying to avoid that situation. We get someone who's really, really, really qualified, and we know will do an excellent job. And where is our no kidding line in the sand for dollar? Because he needs to make a posting, he needs to negotiate, he needs to do all these things.
We've had trouble in the past because we've paid superintendents over 100. And then when we come back and try to drop it, the next one has a fit and doesn't want to work for us and tries to get us up to 100, we let him go. So you're telling me that we got to draw that line. We can't draw that line up there at 75 for that outstanding individual. It has to be flexible, I agree. And if he's getting a kick 5,000 in January, start him at 40,
Wow.
You're getting 5,000 kick in January, you're gonna have 45.
Well, no, if he,
Whatever that
It's-
number is, we need to budget it now.
yeah, 50 is minimum in January. 50 is minimum in January.
Or 50 in January is minimum.
Yeah.
So
So we know what the minimum is, and we're gonna make him exempt, but what are we willing to go to?
Well, I think
get
that would
the
have
right
to go
person.
off to qualifications.
exactly.
Okay, and I'll bring up a, for instance, without bringing up names or billets. In 2018, when I was here as a director, there was a billet that was getting paid 35,000 a year. I come back this time, it's over 70. Because there was a different quality of person in that job, we paid up to get quality. Okay, I wasn't here when that billet was hired or the determination was done, but I imagine that it was okay, we got to pay for quality
Mhm.
and not go cheap because our budget. Okay, so that's a huge difference. That's over, that's doubling. So I think it is going to be warranted on what that individual is bringing to the table.
There's a saying that my husband and I like in our business, and of course we're self-employed, but it's you pay for experience, not our time. And so in order to get a quality experienced person in there, we are going to have to go higher than the norm, or we're going to have to match or come close to what they're currently getting at their current job. So that way we make it worth their while to come to our district, and especially if we want quality people.
I'm just trying to avoid the situation where superintendent makes a proposal and we say, no, it's too much money. I understand we have to pay for quality. I get that.
So how about we cap it at 60 if we know that our minimum is 50?
Well, we just learned our minimum 50. So you think the cap is 60?
65, but because that gives what, 15,000 negotiation. If capped it at 65, that gives 15,000 negotiation room and
we have
incentive
to
maybe.
Understand, that would be somebody really going
Oh,
above
yeah.
and beyond to get that.
Right.
Well, and keep in mind, we're looking at 55 for next year.
Yeah, in 2 years, it'd be 60. So, I mean, yeah.
Okay, but to that end, there may be something else in the budget that's going to have to give.
But that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Right.
Thank you. That, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that in order to compensate something somewhere in the budget's going to have to give.
All exempt employees, minimum is gonna be 50 in January.
If, yes, to be called, well, and like I said, we need to look at and make sure that they're meeting all of the guidelines that allow for exempt. They keep cracking down on those too. So it has to do with decision-making ability. It has to do with employee direction. It's
There's a lot of
not
factors.
just pay. There's
How
other
many
things involved.
employees they have.
Yes.
So if we
What,
have
and
one
what their level is, and if you're calling them an executive, then it's a whole different ballgame.
So if this exempt one has 10 people, this exempt has nobody, this one's gonna be that way and this one's not?
The
Well, they-
guidelines for somebody who has nobody under them to make them exempt becomes very, very touchy.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Then, you know,
You know, it
But
does
the
boil
director
down
of
to,
operations is gonna have people under him to make an exempt from that.
well, I know that, but I
but
was
we
just,
also need to
thinking
look
of
at equity
other-
of pay too, for
thinking of
responsibilities and all
other
of
people.
that. We have to start looking at equity of pay for experience and responsibilities, and so that we don't wind up with somebody who's employed here saying, well, I've got as much responsibility, et cetera, and going down a rabbit hole there.
Right.
Just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page is
Right.
all I'm trying to do.
So if we're paying
Yeah.
somebody who manages 5% of the budget, 60K, and we're paying somebody who manages 27% of the budget,
40K.
50K,
Right.
then that could be an issue when it comes to this equity of pay law. Right? So
To
we
that
got-
end, the operations budget, it's not, you know, he'll be responsible for the operation side of it. Somebody else is responsible for that transportation side of it. So whoever you're hiring here is not going to be responsible for both sides of that.
Okay,
So-
so we're talking about having two people making exempt pay because of the budget?
It-
By having one person making exempt pay?
It's a matter of whether you choose to try and make them exempt. I mean, they don't have to be exempt. They can still be on a clock and earn overtime. They don't have to be exempt. But yes, you're going to be asking them to clock in and they will receive pay for their overtime. This all boils down to people not being abused through the system of, you're hired to work 40 hours, we make you exempt so we can work you 60 to 80, is where this comes
That's where
from.
the law comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
And there's nothing that says you can't make a manager hourly and pay him overtime.
Right.
But it's usually because of the scope of the job duties that we understand that's going to be outside of normal business hours while you put them on exempt.
Yes.
Well, I mean, okay, Mrs. Pat, my question for you is, at what number do you feel that we're going to have to start making cuts elsewhere? That you would feel, okay, if we get up to 65, okay, that means we got to cut 5 out of somewhere else, or we get up to 70, we got to cut 10. Where's that
Exactly.
threshold?
And I'm saying that you're looking right here at the threshold you're at between 50 and 60, there's going to have to be somewhere between 5 and 10 that's given somewhere else.
But we can do
But
that.
we're
5 and 10
also-
out of
the-
fund balance, right?
The issue also that we're going to be running up against is our one-time money is going to be running out. We have to look at this as something sustainable. We can't all of a sudden say, well, you're going to pay now. And that's where I'm at, is we ought to make sure that what we're doing, as bad as we need it, and yes, we do, and yes, we'd like to have this, but we have to be able to sustain what we're putting in
So then let me
place.
ask this question. So what percentage of the current proposed budget is paid for out of recurring revenue?
I don't know what that percentage is. I'd have to go do the calculation. You want to know out of recurring or what percentage of it's one time?
But same difference,
Yeah.
right? So one time is 37, well, then recurring is 63, right? So whatever number you get.
Because right now I can tell you that in recurring money that we're going to be receiving, it's somewhere around 500,000 is one-time money that
Oh.
we're going to buck up against a cliff.
Okay. I think you
That's-
said recurring. money
No,
was
I'm sorry.
500.
No, that's one-time money that we're going to be
Right.
hitting the wall.
So then what percentage of the current proposed budget then is being committed to recurring expenses?
That's where I'd have to go get you a calculation because I don't know off the top of my head and I do not want to misspeak.
Because that goes to the point you made earlier, So, I mean,
I'm
that's a,
just worried about the money.
that's an important number. So I think we need that number for our regular board meeting. Because I certainly don't want to commit to recurring expenses that exceeds our recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Even if we get,
Well,
even if we get silly and say, well, we know recurring revenue is gonna go up at least a little bit every year, right? Not a lot. Probably not even.
well, and as it stands right now, we're already talking about school nurse and potentially assistant principal at PHE. A lot of that off of 2-year grants. So, I mean, we're already kind of playing close to the edge.
Okay.
Well, we've got
so-
2 advocates also where a portion of theirs is, a good portion of theirs is covered by a grant that we're waiting to make sure we're getting
Right.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a question. We hire somebody at 47, January, he's gonna get 50, right?
Mhm.
2 years' time, he's gonna jump up to 55,
No,
No,
one,
60.
I'm just saying,
1 year time.
Yeah. About 11% raise every year.
Job.
that's where I'm saying we need to look at,
I'm qualified
necessarily
big
whether
time.
you're gonna
Hey,
continue
Ed,
to call it an exempt position.
and then the year after that, you get 60.
Hey,
But you gotta resign from the board if you take the job.
only.
Well, we have to deal with Ed's attitude.
All right. So then, based on what I'm hearing from everybody is we're gonna play it by ear and we're gonna let the superintendent find and recommend a salary to us.
Individual better be really
And
certain
then
that
we're gonna have to make the decision then. So Mr. Cooper, sir, you know how normally we, post the job, do the interviews, select the right person, make the offer, and then hire them on, and then we wait for the next board meeting to approve, but yet technically they're kind of already working for us. Let's not do that. Let's wait for a board meeting to approve the employment of this person and their salary before we actually bring them on.
I appreciate that. You are, and I have a turnover list going, but you are taking away any on-the-job training between now and then
I understand.
with our current ops
But,
person.
at this point, I don't know what other option we have. Do we?
Is the sticking point the number for salary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a number of new positions that we didn't vote on for a salary already. So why do we,
Well,
Why
like I
is
said,
this- I know everything has to be, as long as the superintendent brings it to Miss Pat and Miss Pat says, you know what, that's within the budget. I don't know why we would have to vote as a board on
Well, we have to-
one billet
No,
when
no,
we're
no.
creating billets without the board,
we're okay because we're bringing them on as exempt,
right?
right? It's different, right? If someone's, we hire a new teacher, all right, they're MA 8-4. Okay, that's easy, right? That's really not negotiable.
Right.
Right? CDL driver with 8 years of experience, what is that? F8, right? Or E8. So again, not something we've set up for negotiations because of the exempt nature and because directors don't have a pay chart, which is what we talked about earlier.
Right.
Then we are stuck in this negotiating thing and we know a certain number is going to break the budget. So that's why I'm making that suggestion.
I got a real question then. For the exempt. Okay. How's it gonna differentiate between who's getting bumped up that 5 to 50 and who's not?
If you're exempt, you're exempt. You get bumped.
Well, it's like I'm exempt. I'm not gonna get bumped.
Well, because you're already above that.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
So if they're below 50, they're gonna get bumped up to 50.
Yep.
if
If
they
you
are,
call them exempt.
if they are truly exempt.
How do we know if they're truly exempt?
Like I said, there's
It's on their
guidelines.
contract.
Your contract, that says,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but there's guideline that there's items that have to be met. It's like, your responsibility, making decisions, things like that,
Number of
your
people you
salary, your number,
supervise.
who and how you supervise,
Oh, don't wanna name names
the
or
responsibilities
anything,
that are part of that whole.
All right, Paul, I know we only got 10 minutes left. What do you need to say, man?
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask Ms. Pat, so someone that would, let's say they don't have any subordinates working for them, they probably would not be an exempt employee, correct?
They could be.
They
it's harder
could
to
be, it's much
justify.
harder it's much harder to justify it. And, you know, if you ever got called on it,
You're gonna spend a lot of time justifying it.
you're gonna spend a lot of money justifying it.
There are certain jobs that fall under exempt. Educators fall under exempt. Computers fall under exempt. If you make decisions for the company, for the district, without having to run them by a supervisor, you can get there as well. But this whole new dollar amount that is so much above what the federal law states is really kind of boggling my mind. And I really think someone like John Stanek needs to weigh in on this as a verification. Because they exempt us for everything else. I don't know why they didn't exempt us for that.
That's a good. So, all right, so you brought up educators as being exempt. TJ had a question does that mean that all teachers are gonna have to be paid 50 next year?
No, they are all exempt. Teachers do not fall into this. They are exempt,
Oh, okay.
but because of their
They're
work
exempt to the
schedule,
exemption.
they are already
Right, okay.
past
all right,
that
They're
because
exempt to be exempt.
because of their,
Okay.
because they have a, less than 160-day work
Okay.
schedule and that kind of thing. So
Okay,
All right.
what about transportation manager? Or whatever you call that individual?
right, therein is what, one of the things we
So
need to
that was
look at.
gonna be kicked up to 50 come January. Then you got this maintenance manager,
Well-
he's gonna be kicked up to 50.
But that is where you don't have to make them exempt. They would still clock in, they would still get
True,
paid
but-
overtime.
True, but if
And
they're
if they
exempt
worked
now.
overtime, they gotta be paid.
If they got paid, if they work overtime,
They don't have to be exempt next year.
no, if transportation is up at 2 o'clock in the morning running roads and then comes in and works for 10-hour shift, they're gonna
That's
get
overtime.
overtime,
Yeah,
time and a half.
Yeah, I don't care about that. That's not what,
I'm worried
we
about this
just got
exempt.
the exempt.
So
did-
we
yeah.
talked about exempt, the superintendent and the business office are gonna go work and make sure that whomever we're calling exempt, we can call exempt. They're gonna work that, and that's gonna be part of the final proposed budget at the regular board meeting. All right, so we've only got like 8 minutes till Mr. Ricks has to leave, so are we all good with how we're gonna deal with director of operations?
yes.
I'm good.
I don't see why he can't make the decision, bring it to us if he's,
That's what I told him to do.
okay.
Yeah, but you said don't hire them until after, correct?
Don't actually hire until we approve.
But do we have to have a special board meeting to approve?
Sure.
I
We
mean,
can do that.
No,
I'd
do we
hate
have to have it, or can we do it another way? If he finds someone tomorrow, I don't want to waste another day.
Or
Then we'll
take
have
a
a
chance
special.
of the guy finding something else.
Then
Right.
we'll
The
have a
guy or gal.
special.
Okay,
Okay.
then,
We can have a
let's do it.
special in 24 hours.
Then that's what we do.
Yeah, if he finds someone tomorrow, I want him to
And
act.
if Mr. Ricks'
Let's do it.
job prevents him from participating in the special, then, I'll reach out to him and see what he feels and take his perspective into consideration in my vote.
Your feelings take,
I have no feelings.
Probably to use his and me, we're closer.
okay.
I have one feeling, you can't hurt it. All right. So now we have 2 things left on the agenda. I would like to make a motion to table any changes to policy GASP until the next regular board meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Lippert, aye. Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. Policy GASP is tabled. All right, next, I'd like to make a motion to cap morale spending at $4,200 a year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. Now, I know earlier that we talked about capping this at $3,500 a year. So, Mrs. Petrikaitis, will you please go to the podium?
Yes, sir.
Underneath the podium is an envelope. It's taped to the bottom.
Just my pink slip.
No. What's the envelope say?
Morale fund
What's in the envelope?
through the blue tape.
Yeah, I taped over the thing.
Not sticking to everything.
I used duct tape, so
Cash.
how much cash?
$700.
Hence the difference between what we agreed to in my motion. It was a donation from the Underwood family to the morale spending fund. All right, any further discussion on morale spending?
So then that would mean that what is actually going to be credit card and submitted would still only be $3,500.
Say that again.
Oh, never mind. Nothing. Never mind.
A credit card?
Nothing. Never mind.
Call for the vote, please, sir. We're capping morale spending at $4,200 a year. That's a motion.
Right. But that was
Is there a second to the motion?
an action item.
Additional action items will be proposed based solely on the items discussed earlier.
You just made an action, right?
Got it. Okay. Ms. Combs?
I,
Was there a second to the motion?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Lippert seconded.
Mr. Lippert, aye. Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to 7.0 adjournment, 3 minutes before our deadline. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll give Mr. Ricks the first and Mr. Lippert the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned at